Hey, so we wrapped up with the value stocks. We're now going to circle into our FANG stocks. So in this video, we're going to look at Netflix, Microsoft, and Meta. And we'll just see kind of how they're doing. This is just going to be technical analysis, so don't expect any news related items. But if something comes up, of course, I'll mention it. So let's just start off with Netflix here. Oh, and by the way, if you have any questions or if you want to add any insight from your perspective, by all means, let me know in the comments. Uh, but yeah, let's go into Netflix. So the last time we looked at this was about 2 months ago. A little less than that, but roughly 2 months ago. So on April 18th, whenever we looked at them last, Netflix was trading at 333. We had a buy point marked at 330. So I do believe I made a purchase of this around that time. And then we had resistance marked at 570. Also noting this short-term uptrend with an expected high growth Q2. And that was due to how they weren't going to allow the sharing of the same account. And that's kind of what we were projecting there. So let's zoom in here. We looked at this last right in here during this red bar. It's somewhere in the middle here. So again, 333. So it's right almost in the center. And since then, it had a little dip, and then it just shot off. Not exactly as we drew it up. And so if you're wondering what this purple line is, so during this last video, that was kind of like a projection of what I thought the stock could do between now and, I believe, end of third quarter, because their plan for this, their subscribers or account holders, it was meant to take place during Q2 in terms of the America expansion, which has to be probably the majority share of their subscribers or account holders. So I imagine it would kind of chop sideways, and then more people would find out, and it would kind of trend upwards. And then not until we actually got the earnings would it shoot off. And so kind of right now it's kind of acting as I thought. It's definitely going a little bit above and beyond. I thought it would kind of go more sideways, still up, but sideways a little more. But overall, it's kind of as expected. The real question is what's going to happen when they release their next quarter's earnings. Is that going to really shoot it off like I'm thinking it will? Or, will the results not be as I'm imagining they'll be? But yeah, so I guess just taking a step back here, based on where we are today at about 420. So yeah, this one really took off very well for us actually. So I'm happy I made the buy around like 330. Kind of wish I bought a little more, but whatever I bought, I'm sure it was good at the time. Yeah, I'm waiting for this blue line. That blue line's marked at 470. I think once we get above that has acted as support in the past, going back from about July of 2020 all the way up till June of 2021. So a full year where that really acted as a firm support line, and then all of a sudden it crashed down. So we're not there yet. I think in the meantime, I'm looking for another area of just either support or resistance. And again, I don't want to go too far back, but this is like the past 3 years. I feel like that's a decent enough sample for us. In terms of support, that green line that I put in here, the only real support that I was seeing was, this little indicator here. We can zoom it. So here's one that I felt like, yes, it did dip below, but it bounced right back. Here it came very close, but didn't go below. Then ultimately we came into this crash. As you can tell, it's taken a while to get back up there. Uh, but I felt like there was some sort of support there, at least modestly. And now that we're back above that point, I think for now we'll keep it, but that's probably going to need to get scaled up over time. Um, I really like the blue line, the red line. I don't really want to change anything. I'm trying to see why I picked this light red line here. It must just be because once it took this severe crash, or at least one of the severe crashes, because it looks like we have three solid red lines right in like the middle of our screen. After it took this, I guess, second severe drop, it kind of hung out in this range and it tried to push above, but it couldn't. And then, of course, it dropped even further. We could argue that this was kind of close. So we'll zoom in a little bit right here in this area. It kind of got close, got rejected. But we could also say, considering that trend line in yellow, it kind of just was going above trend, so it needed to pull back in within our range. It's chopping sideways. Here we are again. This time it's going above our kind of temporary resistance at about 397. It really popped. I mean, it went a whole $20 over. That's a decent size move just for a week even. So I do imagine this will probably pull back a little bit. I don't really think it's going to be this 397 point, so I am going to remove this if I can catch it. Okay, so we're good there. I do imagine it'll probably pull back next week. Again, nothing to do with that red line, more so just because of the channel. But between here, 330 and 470, I'm not really seeing any type of worry. Like, I guess if we zoom out further, maybe that was why I had 397. No, because even then I would have had like 385. And I'm looking at like these peaks here, all around 385. This one's that's like 415. Nothing else in between there. So yeah, I guess if I were to have drawn in another point, like this is what it would have been. Something like this makes more sense to me. Of course, I had to go back further in the past, but that's kind of like the fair value range that I would have said. So we're kind of par for course here. Nothing's really popping out to me. I do think it's a slightly overvalued because, again, I'm going to give some weight to this uptrend we have here. I want it to pull back a little bit into that range. If it does, overall, I think it's in a fair value in between our blue lines here of 384 all the way up to 470, nearly $100 range here. And so I guess it just depends on how you want to weight it. Me personally, at this point, I would like for this one to pull back, preferably, considering we're going into next week, since this week's over. The ideal point is we could probably still catch this in the mid to low 300s. Like 340 is still possible. It would take a very big pullback for that number specifically. But I could see, 350s. That's still reasonable. That'd be somewhere in the middle of that yellow uptrend. And yeah, I think that's reasonable. But so let's just update the tracker. So it went from 333. Clearly it's had a nice run here up to 420. Buy points today, I would say like 330 is the ultimate. Considering where we're at today in that uptrend and the lower end of it, we're kind of getting to the point where 330 might start to get pulled off the table. So what I'm going to do is put 2 points here, 350 and 330. And again, 350 would be, definitely on the lower half of the yellow uptrend, but still with a little bit of a margin there. Both those points I'm going to weight equally. Of course, if it drops lower than 350, that'd be better for us to buy, but 350 is like, that's pretty good. If we can catch this one on a dip, which might not happen really um, anytime soon. So we'll see. In terms of resistance, we have 570, and I like that point. If this one keeps trending upwards, there's not really resistance anytime before then. Like, I'm trying to dig deeper into this. Um, I mean, there's multiple points where it could kind of top out, but nothing's like sticking. I mean, maybe 540 we could argue is a point of interest. Scaling down lower, sure, you could say 524 is something. Maybe even all the way down to 500. Like, you could argue there's peaks within this kind of like choppiness that it hit this high, dropped down, but then all of a sudden it surged back up, pulled back down. I think overall 570 is like the very peak, really, or like obviously the black line at about 700, that is the peak, but 570 seems like a very temporary. It's like the peak before the peak, if that makes sense. So I'll keep that in place, but there definitely could be some choppiness going from 470 to 570. But overall, I think that uptrend could still continue. So for resistance, I'll keep it at 570 for now. I can update to today's date. The note, short-term uptrend, I'm just going to add in that's been in effect since May of 22. Since May 2022. And we're expecting high growth in Q2. So we'll actually see if that takes place. We're getting to the point where they probably should be releasing that soon. Yeah, so hopefully next time we circle back, we'll actually be able to cover some more news on this stock specifically. So for today, I'm just going to rate it fair value. I think I'd be okay adding this one. It's just, yeah, it's. I feel like we could get a better deal. I'd be willing to wait for this one to pull back. Like I said, maybe in the mid 300s would be best. Anything lower is even better. So overall, I'd say it's fair. Um, Even though it is slightly above trend, we could give it red, but I think long term, considering the uptrend, I would actually give this one fair value. So here's just a quick recap of Netflix before we move to Microsoft. Currently it's at 420. Buy points are 330, 350 with resistance at 570. There's the date, and then short-term uptrend since May of 22. And we're expecting high growth in Q2. So we'll actually see how that takes place. And then of course we marked it blue for fair value. Here's the what the colors mean off here on the right. But yeah, let's take a look at Microsoft here. Microsoft, again, last time we looked at it was like mid-April. At that point it was trading at 288. We had buy points marked, multiple buy points all the way down to 237 to 252 and then 271. We thought there might be some resistance at 302. We'll see what their chart looks like. We noted short-term uptrend and to buy the dips. So let's take a look at their technicals, see how they're shaping up. Okay, so let's zoom in here. So 417. So that was right about, that was probably Monday of this week. So that probably was right around here. 289, we have 288. So right here, ever since then, it pulled back that week, but since then, it's been going up higher and higher. So this uptrend that we marked, it's gone way above and beyond that. It's exceeded what we thought would be a resistance point. It's cleared that. It's come close to its all-time high. It looks like now it's starting to see that might be a little bit too high today. So interested to see how if this pulls back all the way down to within our range, within that point. If it pulls back to our range, this uptrend, um, potentially, I mean, it could pull back all the way into the high 200s. I'm just taking a look here to see if I want to update some of these marks here. Like this green line, I'm trying to figure out why I put it there. Like what I want to do is I'm actually going to move this up a little bit to about here. And the reason for that is because it looks like it kind of acted as support here. Here's 0.2. This is kind of close, so that's 0.3. Yes, it came down here, so that's also kind of a support line. This point right here, it kind of looks like we have support slash resistance at the same time. The red line's okay. Resistance, that's fine. Here though, there's not, like I could pull this back some. That kind of catches that. Here's a little bit, here's a little bit. There's a point here. There's not, we're just not seeing much support or resistance on many exact points. And that kind of will tend to happen when we have stocks that rally very, very quickly and then also fall very quickly. And this one's just kind of peaked, valleyed, and now we're peaking again. And not much like hesitation in between. We had some consolidation here. We could argue some back here. But yeah, this one, it just knows where it's going. It's either going up or down. Hardly any sideways movement. But yeah, this blue line, that one's kind of tricky. I could pull it up a little bit here. Okay, so if I leave it here, that's because it's acting as support here, slightly here, we could say, and then here. So 3 points of interest. Down here, possibly. In terms of like resistance, we could argue somewhere like here. We'll just draw in another fair value point right around here. This bottom one, it could be some sort of resistance. I know we're kind of looking in the past, and maybe we don't even need to worry about this since we're so high. We might not even need to worry about it, but just for my sake, I want to kind of pick out a range here. We'll leave that for now. Okay. So again, last time we looked at this, 288. Since then, it's just really shot off. Currently, it's at 326. If I were to buy this one, I think that's why we wanted this this blue line so bad. It's because we wanted to see where it could potentially bounce at, and I think it would be 281. And you know, that's depending on how quickly it pulls back. Based on our trend, and I'm going to remove this. This was like wishful thinking at the time that we saw a red bar appear. We were hoping that it would kind of pull back to the lower end of the range and potentially pick it up as a dip. That did not happen, so I'm just going to remove that line right there. We can extend this one out, trying to keep it parallel as best as we can. Uh, yeah, my buy point at this point would have to be, I would say, like 280. This one seems really high. I guess it all depends on your risk, where you think this one's going. Um, because what we've seen in the past is anytime stocks, and we can even take a look at this, like if we go in the past here, similar to what it's doing now, it's been going up, and honestly, ever since this is probably a better situation, I suppose. But you can see, like, if this was the peak before, it pulled back, and then all of a sudden it went up from like 182 to like 220. So let's just do some quick math here. 40 divided by 180. That was like 20%. It beat its all-time high back in 2020 by 20%. Pulled back a little bit. Then it rallied from 220 all the way up to 340. That's like a 50% move. So that is that's potentially on the table here. So I'm not sure what to make of it. Um, what's nice is along this journey here, there were some pullbacks, movements of sideways consolidation for maybe a month or two, couple, maybe a full quarter. Sometimes it looks like here was about a full quarter, about a month here, chop sideways, a month here. So I think that's something we need to consider is when we say dips, it doesn't necessarily need to be a dip like we see here where it goes from 340 all the way down to 310 or lower. It could just simply be we reached 220. We check back a month, potentially 2 months later, and it's still at 220. That would kind of be a dip. And if we look at our uptrend, so what it would basically look like is, okay, we hit here, the peak at 260. All of a sudden we chop sideways, and now all of a sudden we're here, still at 260, but now we're at the low end. That could, to us, be a dip by this opportunity. Um, so for now, we'll just see how this plays out. So again, from 288, we're now at 326. I think I have Microsoft. Probably not as much as I should, but I'm pretty sure I have some. Uh, for me, the buy point, though, looking at next week, would probably be 280. Yeah, 280 I think is on the table. So I'm going to remove all those other buy points because they might be off the table at this point. I'll put in 281. 281, or I'll just leave it as 281. Resistance of 302. Clearly we smashed that. Yeah, in terms of resistance, geez, it just went so high so fast. 302. For me, let's see. Where would I mark this as, like, I mean, 302. 302, 344. Any other points that I'd be worried about? Right now, 302. I feel like this one's kind of overvalued. Again, we've seen how this one's acted in the past. So it has a lot of potential behind it. That's the thing. So hopefully when we circle back to this and get into the news, look into their financial statements, that's when this might make a little more sense to us. But overall, note the uptrend since January, short-term uptrend since January of 2023. Buy dips, that's still the case. What I also want to do is just take a step back here, and we've done this for some other stocks. let's just take a look at if we drew in, where is it? Is it this trend channel? Or no, it's parallel. Okay, so let's just take a look at, what if we take something like this? Is that going to be a good spot? And then somewhere like up here? Something like that? Can I pull this down? Yeah, okay. It's just hard to catch. This one just accelerates so quickly. Let's see. Come on. Because really that kind of acts as a range. If we go back to like 2018, that's pretty good. But if we were to scale this back and go something like, if we pull it back to here and try to catch most of these peaks, I mean, this one just grows so quick sometimes. It's crazy. I mean, I guess the point I'm trying to make here is it's not like crazy overvalued, but yeah, I'm just going to take that out for now. I might circle back to that idea. But for now, yeah, I just don't like this until I can figure out kind of what's going on there. But I can tell you, if this one starts to reach new highs, like 350, 360, this one could potentially run like 20, 30% pretty quick. So want to keep that in mind too. But yeah, we'll just end it there for now with Microsoft. So currently it's at 326, buy point marked at 281. I do believe that's still on the table. Resistance at 302, clearly we passed that. And then all-time highs at 344, very close to that. Short-term uptrend since January, and we're looking to buy dips on this. So let's move on to Meta. This will be the last one for us. Currently it's at 218, or I'm sorry, last time we looked at this, it was at 218. Last time we looked was mid-April. We noted buy points of 170 and 205. We didn't put resistance. We'll probably put that in at this point, just kind of see what we're able to find. Here's another one that's been rallying since November of 2022. So we can just update our note here to show that short-term uptrend since November 2022. Buy dips is still in play. Similar to Microsoft, I just put in a mark here, hoping that it would pull back. It did not, so let's just get that out of here. So what we've done here is, previously we had this slight sideways consolidation, I think, and so we were just trying to catch it at these points. You can see this green line marked at 150, blue at 171, and then red at 187. Then all of a sudden in November, we started seeing this uptrend, and so we basically just tried to turn our buy point, fair value point, and resistance point into that uptrend. And so now we have this green line going upward, blue line trending upward, and red line trending upward. We're now above that point. We've been in that upper fair value type range since February. So we've been in that smaller range pretty consecutively, and now we're actually going above and beyond that. So let me just kind of scale back. We'll get some more data points here. We're going back to 2020. If I were to update this one and look for resistance points, this one's pretty decent. I'm just trying to pick some middle points here when it was coming back down. Another point of interest seems to be right in this range, I'm gonna say. Clearly it's gone slightly above, but right here it kind of chops sideways. So I could even bring this down a little bit. In terms of support, let's scale back a little bit. I kind of like this point here. This could potentially be, and we'll just add in another buy point right around here. That might, okay, so that might be our range, and a buy point. Like, what has acted as clear support? I mean, truly that has, at least for that little bit. Okay, what we'll do is we'll add a point here, right in this range. We'll make that green also. I'm not sure if it'll pull back to this type of spot anytime soon. But again, what we're trying to do is just see where does it top out at multiple times, and where does it kind of stop its decline multiple times. And so this top blue line, you know, it struggled to get over about the 282 mark, but also once it surpassed the 254 mark, it seemed to hang out in that range for a while. We're now in that same position, so it might chop sideways for a little bit. That is a potential thing that might happen. This slight red line we had here, that was picked because it topped out here. We could also say here, kind of acted as support for a little bit, but it was more so resistance. This green line here, both of them. So the top one, we're seeing it acted as support once, kind of hung out here a couple times. 3, 4. Here's a more recent one, 5. The lower of the green. Here was a pretty definitive support point. Here we could see it came pretty close for consecutive weeks, really. Ultimately, it crashed, and then here we're on the way back up. If I were to pick another, well, that top blue mark is kind of like a resistance point. So I guess where it stands right now, and so we can update this. Oh, and let's just kind of take a look. So 417 was last time we looked at this, which was here, somewhere in the middle here. Ever since then, it's just gone straight up pretty much, or, you know, within trend. So right now, 264, it's gone up $50. That's like 25%. So 264. Buy point on this one for me would be, just looking back in the past, I'm probably going to remove this point just so it doesn't confuse us. Truly, probably like 254 is the updated buy point. 254, like 220, I suppose. So 220/254. And what I'm going to do is bold 254 at this point. In terms of resistance, potentially like 282. It might struggle to get over that point, and then 343. So those will be the updated resistance points of 282 and 343. I will bold the 282. I'm very curious to see how this one reacts. Now that it's in this kind of fair value range, is it going to act similar to what it did here back in 2020 and early 2021? Is it going to kind of hang out in there? Based on kind of the environment, I don't think it will, but maybe it will hang out there for a month and we can kind of pick up some stocks. We'll see. We can update the date here. Short-term uptrend since November. Buy dips. We'll keep that. Overall, though, so the one thing is it's above our trend, so I could mark it red for that reason. If we look at our horizontal lines, going up the stages or in that fair value range, I'm going to mark it red for today. I think there's going to be other opportunities, but we'll circle back on it. We'll see how it plays out. So that pretty much wraps this up. So here's Meta, just a quick summary. Currently it's at 264. Buy points are marked at 220, with 254 being a more dominant buy point today. Resistance is at 282 and 343, with 282 being a more pivotable resistance point. Updated the date, and then we're noticing that short-term uptrend since November of 22, and we're interested in buying dips on this one. But overall, at this stage, I think it's close to resistance. I want to see how it reacts next time we circle back on this one. But yeah, let me know your thoughts are on these three, and please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.